again, a separate section. So if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, or if you'd like to enter your question in the chat, we can read it for you.
Yeah, this is Gene Perry. Before we go, I just want to congratulate you on both of the presentations. They were excellent. The radon legislature action, were you very disappointed at the result? Because I was.
Yeah, so it actually didn't pass 5-4, which was sort of close. It was very close, and so it's sort of frustrating in that regard. But we sort of got to know about not just about how to engineer the bill, but how sort of the political climate and how who's the majority in the House and how that all has to sort of align. And so while the result was disappointing, we did try to sort of look at a lot of the positives of getting radon legislation going, and also a big learning process for Eric and I.
Well, I'm just so sorry that was such a bad ending to a great story.
Yeah.
But it's very informative because I had forgotten all about radon, to be honest with you. I know it had existed for a long, long time, but I had forgotten. Thank you for reminding me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a quick question too. So my question is, it's kind of mean. I wanted to know the sampling methods you used, and yeah, I wanted to know what sampling techniques you guys used to ensure that there was no bias, and that you are targeting the correct people who are going to give you the correct information.
Are you talking about regarding the neighborhood survey that we did?
Yes.
So that was. It was a relatively simplistic sort of survey, as you saw on that one slide. And we sort of just went to our neighbors, and some of them we knew, some of them we didn't really know. And we sort of asked these questions without giving them any information beforehand, to just sort of test their base knowledge. And so that sort of got rid of and we told them that this wasn't for anything. This was just for a project for us to sort of know what our neighbors were thinking and doing about radon. And so there wasn't really any sort of bias implicit in us sort of asking the questions, especially as just, kids curious about this environmental hazard in their neighborhood.
I had a question for you guys. Given your various scientific explorations and how young you were when you got started, I was just wondering what you would, if you're talking to someone who's your age or younger, what advice you might give them. If they're trying to pursue a career in science, what would you suggest?
Well, I'd say that the best thing when we were starting out is we found that something we were passionate about. I mean, you can do all you want in science. It's a very general term. It's a very general place to explore what you're interested in. But I guess what really aligned for Christina and I to start out was it's radon. It's something that was very real for us. It was something that we found a passion about. And if you are into science but you don't know what that is yet, I'd say it's more about exploration before any type of project like what we did. And it all deals with passion, and it's hard for young children, even my age, just to find out what is that. But at a young age, something kind of clicked for us. And I'd say if something does click, you got to pursue it. And I mean, for us, we definitely thought at the beginning, we're kids, what can we do to help? There's pretty much nothing, right? But I think we proved that fact wrong within time.
Thanks, Eric.
Of course.
And I would also say, just for kids to sort of just be aware of what's going on around them, whether it's like toxins around them or environmental hazards, or just sort of a general awareness of their environment and the science sort of going on around them. And from there, I think pursuing different avenues of learning and education, whether that's through like videos or classes in school or books, or just there's so many different ways to learn about these things around us as kids. And I'd say to, one, pursue any sort of education that you can, but also once you do find something, like Eric said, that you're passionate about, that you do want to pursue, to sort of investigate different avenues of looking into it more. I mean, we sort of saw this full spectrum of everything from going neighbor to neighbor and finding out not just what our parents knew about radon, what we knew about radon, but what our neighborhood and community knew about radon. And then we went and we tried rallying, and we worked on public policy, and then that sort of led Eric and I to each pursue different aspects of research into scientific hazard or environmental hazards around us. So really just being open to all avenues of education and pursuing topics that you're interested in.
Yeah, it seems like every door that opened, you guys kind of followed it through that door, and you kept following the path along. Would that be safe to say that that's?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
I'd say that my summer it's been less about the environment, but I still have that interest in water, and I'd actually like to continue testing my water treatment system. So we'll see if I can find some different contamination sources in Colorado. But it's definitely something to consider for the future for me. I'm not really sure yet.
Thanks, guys.
Of course.
So I was glad that Gene asked, this is Kevin, sorry. I was glad that Gene asked his question. And mine are along those lines. I'm really, excited and impressed. I'm sure everyone is impressed by your work. Not just as young people, but just as humans, because I think that a lot of times as humans, we'd rather not get involved. We'd rather just assume that things are clean and that institutions are going to protect us. And so I'm going to make, I guess, maybe a quick and general statement and just ask for your thoughts. We're facing a crisis in journalism where newspapers aren't as available. They're cutting staffs to be able to report on environmental issues. We have a crisis with education where fewer and fewer schools are equipping students to ask the questions that you're asking. And then we have this challenge with, I was in real estate for a while. And so, we had radon tests, and like Gene, again, kind of forgot about radon. But whether it's the radon or the water, regionally, if we don't know what those issues are that are most likely to affect our environment, our local regional environment, know what to test for. So I'll come back and kind of reiterate what everyone's saying. I'm very impressed with not just the fact that you went out and did something as kids, but the pursuit of all these things along the way, pursuing them out. So I guess the question is, do you have thoughts on how we can, any specific things that we might be able to do to get this general understanding into schools more broadly, to where the expectation is kids should be doing this project-based learning, and how do we find their passion? You guys kind of stumbled across it. I'm sure you were supported. But through all this, what are your maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that we could do as a society to empower humans to care and to get active at the grassroots level, or top down, bottom up?
So a pretty touching story for both Eric and I think, was that a neighbor of ours had was in school in their science class, and another kid did a presentation on our project actually. And they were presenting about how it was like this local environmental awareness grassroots project and what that sort of meant, and why an issue like radon was important for us to care about here in Colorado. And so I think that encouraging actions and working things like that into the curriculum at schools from a very young age to sort of just show kids in classrooms what other kids are sort of up to. Not that they have to pursue those exact avenues or exact hazards. I think just sort of that general sharing of information and letting kids know that, you know, any step that you would make, whether it's brochures or posters or a website or an awareness project or policy or talking to city councils, there's a lot of different ways, and you can sort of become inspired or reach out to other kids who are doing similar things. So I think that's something that we can sort of work on in schools at a basic young age for kids.
And I'll add a little bit to it. That was a really good question. I would say that for me, the water interest that I had started in school. And I don't think every school has this thing called the Global Water Challenge or the Global Water Project, but a project like that kind of gets you thinking. Whether you like it or not, you have to study some type of global water issue for a long time. And that type of exposure is something where you can't force a passion out of a kid, but you can definitely facilitate them finding one. And for them finding one, once they have it, I think there's a great deal of empowerment or encouragement that needs to happen, because I'd say that kids don't realize how much power they have until they start acting. So in that case, I'm not perfectly sure on how we should encourage students to do that at a young age, but say in middle school, you start to get exposure to global issues with water, with clean air, with oil, with these different types of environmental issues. That's just exposure, and that's the first step. And if you try to force anything, they'll lose interest, but as long as they have the exposure, it's more likely that they'll find an interest.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eric and Christina. So we have one last question. So Joe said, fantastic presentations. I'm curious about the radon. Have you been able to look in the literature about which interventions are affordable and cost-effective for radon prevention? For instance, in England, they found they could afford to test new homes, but not old homes for radon.
So that was actually a very interesting article that I hadn't seen or looked at previously. So thank you for sharing that. But I personally have not looked into too much literature about what is cost effective, especially regarding new homes versus old homes. We have looked at different sort of methods of mitigation, and an interesting thing that we did find is that radon levels can vary so much from new home to old home, and so really it's sort of, I think, like a case-by-case basis, and I would like to sort of look into what would be the best course of action for new homes versus old homes, and depending on their levels and their sort of infrastructure of their foundation.
Great. Great thing to think about.
Okay.
My last question is, are you guys too young to become Rotarians? Because you can just skip the whole interact thing and figure out a way to sign you up.
I'm not sure. What is the age? We'll have to see.
I think you have to interact first, right?
I don't know. I think technically when you turn 18, maybe 21, we'll find out. But we'll be recruiting you. I'm sure they're recruiting you at the Ivies as well. But we'll do our best.
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much, Christina and Eric, for sharing your presentations with us tonight. It was amazing to hear from both of you, and it was great topics to discuss this evening. And on behalf of the club, we have this certification of appreciation for being our speakers this evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having us. And if you have any more questions, Eve has our emails, so you can reach out through her or get our emails from her. We'd love to try and answer any other questions that you have.
Absolutely. And good luck with college this upcoming year.
Thank you so much.
And then to close out our Rotary meeting for the evening, I've asked Chris Hash if he could lead us in the four-way test.
Thank you. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for being online this evening. And that's Rotary for tonight. If anyone wants to stay online for a little, you're welcome to. And